Ever wondered what happens when a real estate lawyer decides to play electrician with a metal pool skimmer? A successful attorney, educated enough to navigate complex legal cases, standing poolside with a long metal pole. Above him, power lines crackle with enough electricity to light up half the neighborhood. But instead of calling professionals, he thinks, how hard could it be to poke that palm frond loose? Spoiler alert, physics doesn't care about your law degree. Welcome back to Wow Amazing, where we celebrate humanity's most spectacular failures to think things through. Before we count down today's collection of catastrophic decision-making, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Today's episode features everything from legal eagles who forgot about electricity, to safety officers who ignored their own rules, to criminals with the worst timing in criminal history. So buckle up, because we're about to explore 10 stories that prove common sense isn't actually that common. Number 10. The Electrician Attorney. Let's start our countdown with a story that proves even the most educated minds can make the most basic mistakes. Meet John, a successful Los Angeles real estate attorney who spent his days navigating complex legal battles and million-dollar property deals. On this particular day in 2003, John was enjoying some peaceful pool maintenance at his California home. He was skimming leaves from the water when he spotted something annoying: a palm frond caught in the power lines above his pool. Now, most reasonable people would call the utility company or hire professionals. But John looked at his long metal pool skimmer and thought he'd found the perfect solution. After all, how hard could it be to just poke the frond loose? John raised his metal pole toward the power lines, apparently forgetting everything he'd learned about electricity since elementary school. The moment his pole made contact, thousands of volts of electricity found their path of least resistance. Unfortunately for John, he had just become part of that circuit. The electricity traveled down the metal pole and through his body with devastating efficiency. John was instantly transformed from successful litigator to toasty critter, proving that education and common sense don't always go hand in hand. But the story doesn't end there. Perhaps as a tribute to his litigation skills, John's family decided to sue both the utility company and the pool supply store. Their claim? Failure to warn customers about the dangers of poking metal rods into power lines. Sometimes the most educated people make the most educated mistakes, and sometimes lawsuits reveal more about common sense than any safety manual ever could. Number 9. The Safety Officer's Final Lesson. Our next contestant proves that irony has a sense of humor, especially when it comes to workplace safety. Meet Phil from New Zealand, whose job title was Accident Prevention Officer at a large food processing plant. Yes, you heard that right. This man's entire career was built around keeping people safe. In April 2003, Phil needed to make some repairs under his car, so he grabbed his trusty jack and got to work. But when he raised the vehicle, he discovered there wasn't enough room for him to work comfortably. Most people would lower the car, find a better location, or use proper equipment, but Phil had what he thought was a genius solution to his space problem. He removed his car's battery, placed the jack on top of it, and jacked up the car again. Now he had plenty of elbow room to work. Phil apparently forgot that car batteries are designed to provide electrical power, not structural support. The battery wasn't built to handle the weight of an entire vehicle, especially not with a person working underneath. Predictably, the battery collapsed under the pressure, sending the jack toppling and trapping Phil beneath his car. Unable to breathe with the vehicle's weight crushing his chest, Phil quickly expired in a pool of battery acid. This wasn't Phil's first encounter with automotive jack failure. 10 years earlier, he had been working under a car when the jack collapsed, trapping him and breaking his leg. You'd think that near-death experience would have taught him to respect proper safety procedures, but apparently some people don't learn from their mistakes, even when those mistakes nearly kill them. The man whose job was preventing accidents had just become the victim of his own creative problem-solving. Number 8. The Ice Fishermans Return. Sometimes Mother Nature gives you a warning shot, and smart people take the hint. Our next Darwin Award winner wasn't smart people. Meet David from Michigan, who in March 2003 decided to ignore Coast Guard warnings and drive his pickup truck onto the icy surface of Saginaw Bay. This was during a chilly morning when any reasonable person would question whether ice could support a vehicle's weight. Predictably, David's truck broke through the ice and began sinking into the frigid water. But luck was on his side that first time. The 41-year-old managed to escape from his sinking pickup and reach shore, wet and cold but very much alive. Most people would consider this a valuable lesson about respecting nature's warnings. Most people would dry off, warm up, and never venture onto questionable ice again. David was not most people. David made a decision that defied all logic. This time he brought a friend and traded his pickup truck for an all-terrain vehicle, apparently believing that different transportation would somehow change the laws of physics. Surprise, the ATV also plunged through the ice. His companion managed to survive this second disaster, but David's luck had finally run out. The Coast Guard recovered his body southwest of the Channel Islands, and an autopsy was scheduled to determine whether anything besides poor judgment contributed to his death. David had learned absolutely nothing from his first experience with death, proving that some people need more than one warning shot from Mother Nature. Unfortunately, David didn't survive long enough to receive a third lesson. From icy miscalculations to criminal masterminds with ammunition problems, our next story proves that even bank robbers can fail at basic equipment management. Number 7. The Blank Robbers. Madrid, Spain, March 2003, where 3 robbers thought they had planned the perfect crime. Their target was a local brothel, and they had equipped themselves with real guns and detailed plans. Early one morning, they invaded the establishment, confident in their firepower and criminal expertise. But their timing was terrible. Police received a call about the robbery and quickly surrounded the building. Using a bullhorn, officers tried to coax the 3 criminals from the premises peacefully. The robbers found themselves surrounded by dozens of armed policemen, facing a situation that would terrify any rational criminal. Our 3 Darwin Award nominees decided to go out in a blaze of glory. They fled the building while shooting at everything in sight, creating a spectacular gun battle in the streets of Madrid. The police took cover and returned fire, and within minutes, 2 of the robbers were fatally wounded, while the 3rd was seriously injured. Now you might wonder why the gunfight ended so quickly. After all, 3 determined criminals with real guns should have been able to put up more of a fight against even well-trained police officers. The answer reveals the fatal flaw in their criminal planning. The 3 robbers were carrying real guns loaded with fake ammunition. They were firing blanks, cartridges that created plenty of flash and thunder to fool the police into shooting back, but no actual bullets to help them fight their way to freedom. They had brought fake ammunition to a real gunfight, making enough noise to sound dangerous while being completely harmless. The police, of course, were shooting back with very real bullets. Sometimes criminal masterminds aren't quite as masterful as they think, especially when they forget to pack the most important part of their weapons. Number 6. The movie stunt dreamer. Ever since middle school, Tyler had one dream that set him apart from his friends. He wanted to do something different, something unique, something nobody else would ever try: jump from a moving car. Tyler was convinced that with the right technique, he could leap from a speeding vehicle and land gracefully, just like his action movie heroes. He had even attempted this stunt before and survived with what his friends called an asphalt tattoo, road rash that commemorated his first experiment with automotive acrobatics. Most people would consider surviving one car jumping attempt a sign to find safer hobbies, but Tyler saw it as proof that his technique just needed refinement. On Labor Day 2003, the 20-year-old was riding in the backseat of a Subaru Legacy with friends, planning another dramatic stunt. His friends tried to talk him out of it, understanding that real life doesn't come with Hollywood stunt coordinators and safety equipment, but Tyler was determined to perfect his movie-inspired skill. The Subaru was cruising at 40 miles per hour when Tyler decided the moment was right. He could jump. He should jump. He would jump from the moving car. His father later explained, "I think this was the last big thing he wanted to do as an immature kid, before accepting he had to grow up." Unfortunately, Tyler's plans for maturity were cut short by physics. The moment he leaped from the speeding vehicle, reality took over with merciless efficiency. Instead of rolling gracefully to his feet like his movie heroes, Tyler hit the asphalt with instant and fatal force. His last jump earned him another asphalt tattoo, this one shaped permanently like a Darwin Award. Number 5. The Glowing Smuggler. The Hungarian border with Ukraine sees all kinds of smuggling attempts, but March 2002 brought something truly unusual. Because of concerns about nuclear smuggling from former Soviet countries, even small border stations have special Geiger-Muller detector gates. These devices look like empty door frames, similar to metal detectors at airports, but instead of detecting metal, they detect radioactive materials. A man with a backpack arrived at the border crossing, seeming a bit dizzy and unsteady on his feet. The guards assumed he was drunk. Vodka is cheap in Ukraine, and intoxicated travelers are common in the area. Following standard procedure, they instructed him to pass through the Geiger-Müller detector gate. The man seemed anxious about this request, hesitating and looking around nervously. But finally he obeyed and stepped through the detector. Immediately, the gate triggered an urgent alert that sent people running for their lives. One glance at the dosimeter readings told the terrifying story. This man was dangerously radioactive. The Hungarian army dispatched an ABC, Atomic Biological Chemical Reconnaissance Vehicle, to investigate and decontaminate the scene. When the soldiers arrived in their protective gear, they found the smuggler sprawled face down and dead, just a few steps away from the detector gate. They carefully turned the body over and discovered a large, burnt wound in his stomach. The incredibly stupid smuggler had taped a chunk of radioactive material directly to his body. Further investigation revealed a discarded nuclear waste canister on the Ukrainian side of the border. If he had simply left the radioactive material in its proper container, neither the detector gate nor the border guards would have spotted what he was carrying. He would still be alive today, though others might not have been so fortunate. Instead, his decision to hide deadly radioactive material against his skin had slowly cooked him from the inside while he traveled toward the border. Number 4. The Mountain Zipliner. September 2002 in Italy brought us a 53-year-old man from Glasgow who looked at a steep mountain slope and saw opportunity. Above him, unused tram cables stretched down the mountainside, and our Darwin Award winner saw them as the perfect transportation system. He attached a climber's snap hook to the overhead tram cable and prepared to manually ride down the mountain like some kind of improvised zip line. What he had was the enthusiasm and equipment for a thrilling ride. What he lacked was any understanding of physics, gravity, or basic safety principles. The mountain was steep, gravity was constant, and he had no way to control his speed once he started descending. The moment he launched himself onto the cable, physics took control with ruthless efficiency. He accelerated rapidly, moving far faster than any human body was designed to handle. Within seconds, he was traveling at deadly speed with no way to slow down or stop. He crashed against rocks along the way, his body bashing and bouncing down the slope for 200 meters before finally impacting a pylon. Several witnesses had tried to stop him from attempting this bizarre stunt, understanding that improvised transportation rarely ends well. He should have listened to their advice. When rescue teams reached him, he was DOA, dead on arrival. Our Glasgow adventurer had transformed a relaxing mountain visit into a high-speed collision course with reality. Sometimes the shortest distance between 2 points includes a very painful stop at the bottom. From transportation failures to tree climbing theft attempts, our next story proves that what goes up doesn't always come down safely. Number 3. The Hardwood Thief. February 2002 in Hawaii brought us Joshua, a 30-year-old man with expensive taste in lumber and poor judgment in harvesting techniques. Joshua had spotted a valuable koa tree on a remote ranch and decided he needed a piece of this expensive native hardwood for himself. Rather than purchase lumber legally, he chose the path of midnight theft. Under cover of darkness, Joshua hiked several miles onto private property and climbed 20 feet up the koa tree. His plan was simple: cut off a valuable branch and escape with his stolen prize. To his credit, Joshua was smarter than cartoon characters. He didn't make the classic mistake of cutting the branch he was sitting on. He understood that basic rule of tree climbing physics. Unfortunately, he wasn't smart enough to consider what might be hanging directly above his head. Joshua positioned himself carefully on a sturdy branch and began cutting another branch that would provide the valuable wood he wanted. His technique was sound, his equipment was adequate, and his plan seemed foolproof. But he had fatally overlooked one crucial detail in his treetop planning. The branch he chose to cut was hanging directly above his position. When his saw finally severed the heavy koa branch, gravity took over with immediate and deadly consequences. The severed branch struck Joshua in the head with the full force of its weight and the acceleration of its fall. The impact killed him instantly, leaving him suspended 20 feet off the ground. Authorities found him still in the tree, tools in hand, a victim of his own poor spatial planning. Joshua had successfully avoided cutting his support branch, but he had ignored the equally dangerous threat hanging over his head. Sometimes the most obvious dangers are the ones we fail to see. From treetop disasters to electrical cleanup attempts, our next story combines good intentions with spectacularly dangerous problem-solving. Number 2. The Sneaker Eliminator. Outside a camp for troubled youths in Pennsylvania, February 2002, sneakers dangled from electrical lines like strange fruit. Some camper had apparently tossed them there, enjoying the challenge and notoriety of this urban tradition. But to one 20-year-old employee, those dangling shoes were nothing but an eyesore that had to be eliminated. Most people would call the utility company or use proper equipment to remove objects from power lines. But our Darwin Award winner had what he thought was a brilliant solution. He positioned himself in the raised bucket of a front-end loader, giving him the height needed to reach the electrical lines. Then he constructed his own shoe removal device, a 14-foot copper tube with a pocket knife taped to the end. This improvised tool would let him cut the sneakers loose without having to touch them directly. The determined employee raised his copper and steel contraption toward the dangling footwear, focused on his mission to clean up the power lines. He had nearly succeeded in removing a pair of shoes when his knife broke through the electrical insulation. The moment his metal tool made contact with the live wire, thousands of volts of electricity found a new path to ground. The electricity traveled down his 14-foot copper conductor and through his body with devastating efficiency. The electrical shock knocked him out of the bucket, and he landed on the hood of the loader with severe burns on his hands, foot, and buttocks. He was rushed to the hospital but died from his injuries 3 weeks later. His mother later said, "Nobody knows what really happened," apparently unable to see the obvious connection between metal tools and electrical wires. Number 1. The Range Safety Officer's Final Demonstration. Our number 1 winner proves that military experience doesn't always translate to survival instincts. June 1983 at Fort Bragg Army Base brought us Sergeant Lowe, whose job title was Range Safety Officer. This meant he was responsible for keeping soldiers safe during weapons training, especially on the LAW, Light Anti-Tank Weapon Range. On this particular day, Sergeant Lowe was assigned to set up moving targets with a 3-man detail. The law range used test rounds that resembled model rockets with orange chalk warheads, smaller and less powerful than actual combat rounds. While installing targets, the team discovered they didn't have proper tools, so they improvised by using a steel tent peg as a hammer. During their work, Sergeant Lowe spotted something on the firing range, a M72 A266mm LAW dud round that had failed to explode when it hit the target. Military protocol for unexploded ordnance is crystal clear. Leave it where it lies and call the Explosive Ordnance Detachment, EOD. The other men in his detail immediately warned him to follow proper procedure and let EOD handle the dud round. But Sergeant Lowe, despite being the range safety officer, replied, "It's just an old dud." To demonstrate how harmless he believed the round to be, he picked it up and began striking it with the steel tent peg they had been using as a hammer. The first strike produced no result, apparently confirming his belief that the round was completely safe. Feeling vindicated in his assessment, Sergeant Lowe struck the dud round a second time. The second impact triggered the pressure-sensitive piezoelectric detonator, causing the round to explode in his hands. The explosion tore off his left arm, destroyed parts of his right hand, and inflicted fatal wounds to his lungs and abdominal area. Instead of calling EOD as planned, medical teams dispatched an evacuation aircraft from the hospital. An Army forensics team arrived to collect what remained of the former range safety officer. Sergeant Lowe had given his final safety demonstration, proving that military expertise and common sense don't always survive contact with overconfidence. The lesson remains clear: always leave unexploded ordnance where it lies, no matter how harmless it appears. Bonus entry: the tree hugger's final embrace. But wait, we're not done yet. We've got one more story that proves some people take getting back to nature way too literally. It's Labor Day weekend 2003, and Tyler's tragic car jumping experiment isn't the only story of spectacular poor judgment that day. 20 miles away, we meet another young man who looked at a towering tree and saw opportunity instead of danger. But this wasn't about stealing expensive wood or trimming branches. This was about proving that humans could return to their ancestral tree-dwelling ways, at least temporarily. Our bonus Darwin Award winner had convinced himself that climbing trees was perfectly safe, even massive ones, even without proper equipment. He selected a particularly tall oak tree and began his ascent, probably feeling quite proud of his primal connection to nature. The climb went well initially. He was athletic, confident, and making steady progress toward the canopy. But somewhere around the 40-foot mark, our tree climber made a crucial error in judgment. Instead of testing each branch carefully, he trusted his weight to a dead limb that looked sturdy from below. The branch held for exactly 1 second before snapping with a crack that echoed through the forest. Our would-be tree dweller plummeted 40 feet straight down, landing with the kind of impact that makes physics textbooks seem understated. When park rangers found him the next morning, he was still clutching pieces of the branch that had betrayed him. His final embrace with the tree had become permanent, proving that evolution moved us out of the trees for very good reasons. Sometimes our ancestors knew what they were doing when they decided ground level was safer. And there you have it, folks. 10 spectacular examples of why education, experience, and good intentions can't always overcome poor judgment. If you enjoyed today's countdown, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring that notification bell. We've got plenty more volumes of Darwin Award winners coming your way. Remember, if you know someone who could benefit from these cautionary tales, share this video with them. You might just save a life by showing them what not to do. This is Wow Amazing, reminding you that natural selection never takes a day off. Stay safe out there, because the gene pool depends on it.